when I was a kid, I was pretty young, a man walked into our house and with a machete, he threatened that he was going to kill me and my mother, anyone else that was in the house. We ran out of the house. We were in our underwear. It was broad daylight, and all the neighbors were outside because it was the middle of summertime. And the man ran out of the house, chasing us down the street with a machete. My mother yelling, trying to protect me yelling, trying to protect my mother. And we're in our underwear. Everyone in the neighborhood can see us. And I'm embarrassed, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm helpless. And one of the neighbors, I guess, called the police. And when the police show up, they approach the man, and then they leave, and nothing happens because the man was my father. We grew up kind of poor, for real. Just like most people in my neighborhood. But we didn't know we were poor. Our parents, they worked really hard to provide for us, to teach us how to be good men, good women, respectful. My mom was always in church, which, man, we were always in church. My mom went to church all the time. She was really a really spiritual woman, really serious about her relationship, with God. My dad, everybody in the neighborhood, in the city, in the state, probably most people in the country knew my father. He was a hard-working man, but he was an alcoholic, a violent, abusive alcoholic. He had problems with rage and anger, and he didn't really know how to deal with it. He didn't know how to handle it. So usually in that case, the people who are closest to you are the ones that get abused the most. As a child, it was puzzling to me how all the kids in the neighborhood thought my dad was so cool, and all the adults would go, "Oh, your dad is a great man." He was a good man, but to us, all we knew is we couldn't be at peace in our own home. There was no happiness, there was no joy, there was no looking forward to coming home after school. It was just 24 hours a day in our home. It was walking on eggshells. You never knew what was going to happen. And again, I apologize if this makes anyone angry. This is my experience. Hope my siblings don't take offense to it. But I just feel like I need to share this. So, growing up, my father would come home and he would just be just furious, full of rage, and he would, curse my mother, curse me. My sister at the time, she had left. She left when I was about 10 years old. I was about 8 years old. She went off to Ohio State, to college, whatever. But and my younger brother, he was just so carefree. He still is. He's a great guy, and I love my family. But for some reason, my father always had this violent aggression towards me, and he used to tell me that I reminded him of my mother. So anytime he was angry with her for whatever, just because he wanted to be angry, he was also angry with me, and he would threaten her. And then as the oldest son living in the house, even though I was small and young, I always felt like it was my job to protect my mother from my father. What could I really do? as a child against a grown man. But when you're that age, your heart is bigger than your stature and your abilities. All you know is you love your mother, So anyways, I would always try to protect my mom, and I'll try to skip forward a lot in this whole thing because it's a long. I had to break it up into many videos, I guess, but I remember there were significant times that I remember. I mean, I grew up with so much anger inside, but I was always really quiet. I didn't talk much. I was always reserved. I was never really concerned with what people thought of me because I had too much going on in my head and at my own home to really care about what other people thought about how I dressed or how I spoke or, how I wore my hair and all that crazy stuff, my braids and, different things like that weren't really important to me as a kid because I was really just trying to figure out how to get through life without losing my mind. My home was a constant war zone. I mean, to the point of, I remember one time I came in and I remember I heard my mother yelling, and I saw my dad, with this porcelain clown above her head, like he was gonna smash it on her head, and I was probably 15 at the time or something, and I remember I came up behind him, and it was the first time I hit my father, and when I hit him, it broke some of his ribs. I sucker punched him. He didn't know I was coming because he would have destroyed me. I was a child, but I felt so horrible. So then I'm trying to deal with, how am I furiously angry with my life and with my father, but my heart breaks for him because of what I did in self-defense of my family, my mother. I was always attacked by my father, but after that point, it just got to the point, it was just a violence. I mean, he would come after me with weapons. I'm a young teenager. I had to leave my home and go stay with friends because my dad's threatening my life. And again, my dad, honest to goodness, I think my dad was a great man. He had a rough childhood, a rough upbringing, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And wasn't for, grace of God, I could be the same person because I dealt with a lot of anger growing up in life. But just dealing with constantly being threatened by a father with weapons, having to leave your own home while everybody else gets to stay there. I've stayed as a young teenage boy, I've stayed in battered women's shelters because I couldn't stay anywhere else. I started talking to this girl when I was like 16 years old. I went to my church. No need to mention names. But we were just teenagers. And as far as I knew, I really loved this girl. I loved her parents. I didn't realize until much, much later in my life that what I loved about their family the most was the peace that I had when I was with them. It was like I would go over to her house and it was like it was a different world. I'm like, who sits down and watches TV together or eats dinner together? Who sits down and talks to each other without yelling? Who can go home after school and enjoy being at home? How is there never any turmoil in your home? To me, that was completely unrealistic. I didn't understand how you could have peace in the place that you live. I'm 16 years old, and I would go over there. My girlfriend wouldn't even be home, and I would just go over there and sit in the basement and just stare at the walls because it was so quiet. And if anyone did say anything to me, it was pleasant. You know, I just could not understand how a mother and a father together, a husband and a wife, could be so pleasant to a human being, to me. It got to the point where I didn't feel like, and I still deal with it today, I didn't feel like I deserved, I didn't realize I still deal with it today, I didn't feel like I deserved for anyone to be kind, like, just kind to me. So anyways, we grow older. Graduate high school, going to college, and I'm still dealing with all this anger and shell shock, post-traumatic stress syndrome, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. It's like underneath the surface. And I'm a real nice guy. People enjoy my company. But it's like at the slightest sign of disrespect or me being challenged, I would just be instantly full of rage. And I remember I met a girl at 19, and I drank my first alcoholic beverage with her because she kept asking, and I just wanted to fit in somewhere. I just wanted to have friends, and everybody else was drinking, so I said, sure, I'll have a drink. And I drank my first alcoholic beverage at 19, and honest to goodness, a week later, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I mean, I was drinking all day, every day. I woke up drinking, went to sleep drinking, got to the point where I would buy a 30 pack of beer every day. And that was just a drink before I went to the bar to drink more. I always told myself I wouldn't be an alcoholic, I wouldn't drink because of who my father was. But, I mean, what? And no excuses, but, I mean, what other example did I have? Besides the few moments, I spent with, my girlfriend's parents and people from my church. But around this age, I start going to church, less and less because I really wasn't that interested. I've always been a musician, so my drums in the background. That's because this is the only room I have that I can shoot a video in. But I remember I got the opportunity to travel with a band and play drums, and that was for my living. I thought it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But in order to do that, I had to leave my hometown and leave my church and everything that I thought I knew about God completely behind me. And by this time, I was heavy into alcohol, marijuana, muscle relaxers, pills, Percocets, Xanax, antidepressants. If it was a pill or a drug, if I could get high or drunk doing it, then I was doing it. I was high and drunk every day, and I have really dear friends, that know me and know that's just who I was. That's what I did. That became a habit, and then out of that, it was almost like life was setting me up to fail, where all these girls would approach me. And I always tell people, I've never been one to chase girls, but it was like everything that could damage me in life was presenting itself to me, and I just had a real hard time saying no, not because of the sensual part of it, but I just really loved the feeling of being needed and accepted and wanted. Like, I love the feeling of being wanted by someone because they wanted me, and not even realizing that I was being used. And guys can be used too. I was being used for my my body, which didn't belong to any of them, and I was being used for a lot of things. I'm not saying this is the case with all the people that I've known, because I've known some really sweet girls in my life, and great, precious friends. But a lot of times I allowed myself to be used because I was using other people to fill a void that I had. And so I remember I left to go on the road with this band. And first I'm like, man, this is the best time of my life. I had a friend who always used to say, you can keep your alarm clocks and shovels, that ain't for me. And that's what we lived by, you know what I mean? Like, it was music and parties and girls. That was our whole lives. I remember, before I left, I called my pastor on the phone, and I told him that I was going to leave, because I was the drummer at the church. But I always had a really good relationship with my pastor. Even though I wasn't really, with it, I wasn't in church, I didn't have a relationship with God, I had a good relationship with my pastor, and I thank him for that. But I called him, and he said, Aaron, he was a musician, he understood. He said, I'd be lying if I said I wanted you to leave, or if I wanted you to go. He said, but you have to make this decision yourself. He said, pray about it and call me back and let me know what you decided. I remember I called him from the strip club. This is where I spent 80 to 90% of my time. They had cheap chicken wings. I really liked chicken wings and beer at the time, so that's where I spent my time. But anyways, I called him from the strip club, and I told him that I had an opportunity to travel with a band and play drums for a living. And he said to pray about it and let me know what your decision is. So I hung up the phone. I didn't pray about anything because I already knew where I wanted to go. But I called him back, and one thing that really stuck with me, he said, well, if this is what you decided to do, if you ever need anything, you can call me no matter where you are. He said, you can be across the world, across the country, and if you need me, he said, I'll be there. He said, I'll get you from anywhere you need me to get you from. You call me for anything you need. And I remembered that. So I got off the phone and celebrated with all the guys that were convincing me to go and telling me it was the best thing that I could do. And left with this band, not too soon after that. I dropped out of school. I was in college. I left college. And my life became one big party. And I'm sorry again, I miss so many details, but there's a lot of details. On the road, it was my goal to do as much drinking, drugs, sex, as much destructive behavior as I possibly could, to forget about everything that my life was before I left. I got to do a lot of that, but the one thing that I noticed was always being surrounded by people. I was just like so lonely. I was always lonely. No matter who was around, I always felt like this deep loneliness, like my soul was lonely. And for some reason, all the girls that I thought I wanted, or that I thought wanted me, wouldn't talk to me. And I kind of think that was leading up to the next part, the next thing that happened. I think all this was kind of working together, and I didn't even really understand what was happening. So I remember we come home from Georgia, and we came back through Iowa, and then we hit Chicago. We left Chicago and we came back home to Ohio. No, we were only home in Ohio for a week, and then we were heading out to Florida the following week to start another part of the tour. I was kind of on a trial period, but I got the permanent gig with the band, and they let me know that. So we got home Friday from Chicago. So Friday night, as soon as I get home, I don't even go to my house. I literally get dropped off at a girl's house that I know, and I'm seeing if she wants to go out to the bar. She didn't want to go to the bar, so I went to the bar by myself. And it's like I go to the bar, and usually when I get to the bar, everybody was there, everybody was ready for me, everybody was waiting, and no one would talk to me. No one I knew was interested in having company with me. And that was Friday night. So Saturday night, I go out again, the same thing. I'm like completely alone. I'm like, what in the heck? Like I don't have any friends anymore at home at all. So I went out, and I was out all night, 2, 3 in the morning. Get home on Saturday night, or really Sunday morning, and my phone rings at 9 a.m. And it was my pastor. He somehow knew that I was in town. And he said, "Hey, what's up, Brother Aaron?" And he was like, "Are you going to come to church today and play the drums for us?" I hadn't played drums in church for a long time. And honestly, I didn't even really remember how to play drums sober. I had been so high and so drunk for so many consecutive days that doing something sober or without drugs or alcohol in my system, it didn't even make sense to me. Like I had no sober coordination. But since he was my pastor and he was my friend, I told him, yeah, I'll come and play drums. I remember I showed up. Church started at 10:30. The music, I didn't really walk in until like 11 o'clock. I was always late because I didn't care. And he just welcomed me, smiled. I sat down, I played a couple songs on the drums. And as soon as I got done playing the drums, I left and went to the strip club. The same one that I left from before I left church the first time. And when I got to the strip club, it was just like nobody there even knew me anymore. And I mean, I was really good friends with like the owners and the managers and all that. And I mean, they wouldn't even really talk to me. I wouldn't get free drinks anymore and, free food and all that. And again, I'm on this island by myself, alone. So all that day, Sunday, I was out trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I ended up going out to they had this little bar called Panini's, or the pub. Left there alone. Went to this bar called BB's. No, there wasn't BB's at the time. Went to the Diamond. I shouldn't even be naming these places. At a strip club, I hung out there till 1 or 2 in the morning. Left there, went to a little after hour spot. Hung out there till like 5 in the morning. And then I went home, alone. Now this was crazy. Like Monday morning. This was Monday morning, December 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Or December 11th, 2006. I woke up at 9 o'clock. I probably didn't go to sleep till like 5:30 or 6 o'clock that morning. I woke up at 9 o'clock and I was so drunk. I was so hungover. I just had smoke all in my hair and my clothes. Like in the bar, you used to be able to smoke then. I smelled like weed, strippers, alcohol. I smelled crazy, man. And I woke up at 9 o'clock, and I think there had been a girl staying at my house, and she must have been watching my TV, because I turned on my TV, and TBN was on my TV, and I know I wasn't watching TBN, so whoever was at my house was watching TBN. And that was a crazy thing too, because there were too many girls with keys to my house. It was careless, I suppose. But TBN was on, and this pastor on TBN said, when I saw it on, first of all, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Like, I had this problem with church, I had a problem with God, I had a problem with the word. Like, I just had a problem, period, I guess. But this guy on TBN, I turned it up to see what he was talking. Like, what is this guy talking about? Like, I turned it up so I could judge his words, you know what I mean? So I could see what he was saying that was wrong or that I didn't agree with. And he said, Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And as soon as he said that, I was immediately sober. And I mean like sober to the point where it was like I had never tasted or touched a single drug or sip of alcohol or cigarette or cigar in my life. The smell of smoke that was in my hair and in my clothes was gone. The smell of smoke that was in my house was gone. My desire for alcohol, my desire for nicotine and marijuana and drugs and pills was gone. And I mean completely gone. Like, it was so shocking that I sat straight up in my bed and I said, what is going on? Like, I thought I was dying because it was like I lost all my senses and everything was so fresh to me. Like the world was fresh. And when this guy said faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, it was like I was brand new. And then for the first time, I heard God speak to me. This is the honest to God true story. If I'm lying, I'd rather die right now. And when I heard it, he said faith is a substance just like water is a substance. And it was like if you put water in the freezer, it turns to ice. If you put it in a fire, it turns to steam. He said your faith is the same way. He said it doesn't matter what you believe or even that you believe in God. If your faith is in the wrong environment, it's ineffective. And like I sat up in my bed like, what is going on, God? Like, what are you, is this real? And then all of a sudden I got this overwhelming desire to know this God that was talking to me. I'm like, this is real and I need to know what's going on. So then God starts talking to me and I start talking back to God, which is crazy. I'm like, God, so what do you want me to do? Like, what are you saying to me? I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like, we're leaving Tuesday. This was Monday. We're leaving Tuesday to go to Florida, and I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to have sex with girls. I'm going to just be straight edge. I'm going to make my money. And God said, no. He said, you can't even be in the environment. He said, you can't even be in the atmosphere. He said, you have to quit. And I'm like, what do you mean quit? Like, this is my only income. This is my livelihood. This is my life. I quit my job. I quit school before I started playing these drums and everything. And God was like, you have to quit. If you want what I have for you, then you have to quit. So, I mean, I didn't waste any time. I got on the phone. I called the band. And, I don't know. I think some of them still mad at me to this day. And this was in 2006. But I called the band. I was like, yo, I have to quit. And they're like, what do you mean? Now, we're under contract. We got agents and we have obligations that we have to meet. We have paid gigs and things that are already booked. We got a schedule. And I'm like, I have to quit. And they're like, what do you mean you have to quit? We leave tomorrow and you are the drummer. Like, if you want more money, we'll give you more money. That's not a problem. And I was like, I would love more money, but it's not about that. Like, I told him, and no, I didn't know what else to say. I said, God told me I have to quit. And a couple of them cussed me out, called me crazy. There was only one that told me he understood. And I hope he doesn't mind. I mean, his name is Eric. And he told me that he understood and that I have to do what I feel God is telling me to do. I really appreciated that. Everybody, I mean, they got rid of some of my clothes, sold them, got rid of my hats, threw them out of windows, dumped them in the trash, some of my instruments, I don't know. Some stuff just was gone. They were mad. And I could understand that, but I was just so happy in this new place that, you know, I mean, clearly God is talking to me. Like, the creator of the universe is talking directly to me. And it was in that moment that my life changed. I didn't start following God like a lot of people, you know, think, because I didn't want to go to hell. I mean, it was a possibility, you know, that could happen. But the reason that I got to know this God was because I wanted the relationship that I could talk to him back and forth, and that things that I needed or things that I saw other people needed, I would be able to speak to this God, to my God now, and we can make this thing happen, and we can make lives better. He can help me, overcome this. Now the crazy thing about all this is, when this happened, my father was actually in the hospital. He was sick. I hadn't seen my father in months and months. My mom, I didn't know he was in the hospital. My mom called me maybe a week after this happened to me. It might have not even been a week. And she said, your dad is in the hospital. He's not doing well. I think you should go see him. So I went to go see my dad. The same dad who, I almost hated him. There was times I tried to kill my father. Literally murder him with knives, and my mother would always catch me in the middle of the night. Honest to goodness, like God would give her these, he would just wake her up out of her sleep, and she would turn the light on, and I'd be standing over my father with knives. I was really going to kill him because I didn't know what else to do as a child to protect myself and my family and just have peace. And I wanted to murder my father. But my mom called me after this happened to me, after I had this experience with God, and she told me that your dad is in the hospital. So I went to go see my dad, and when I got there, he couldn't even speak. He was so sick. He had pneumonia, and he had drank himself, and smoked himself almost to death, And when I saw him, he just looked at me, and when my dad looked at me, I looked at him. We looked each other in the eyes. All I could say was, Dad, I love you, and I forgive you. I'm not mad anymore. And when I said that, my father cried, and I cried, and it was like all of the anger and the resentment and the rage that I had in my heart towards my dad immediately disappeared. And it was gone, like it was never there. And we knew it, even though he couldn't speak. I held his hand, and we just looked each other in the eyes, and we made amends. And it was just like the most refreshing experience of my life, almost, man. Like, and that was the last time that I actually ever saw my dad alive. And I thank God that I had the opportunity to forgive him, and that we didn't part in that place where there was just no love, And again, I know he loved me, but I didn't know how to receive the kind of love that he was giving. So that was December 12th or 13th, actually. Yeah, it wasn't even a week that my dad died, I believe. And that first Christmas was the best Christmas of my entire life. It was like so real. I'm like, man, this is the Jesus that we are celebrating on this holiday. And I don't really care if you believe in Christmas or not. I'm telling you what my experience was, and it's real to me, and it's real to a lot of people that knew me, because they knew who I was, and they know who I am now. I love Jesus with all my heart. I love him so much, because he's done so much for me. Like, he literally saved my life, man. I could really be dead or in jail. I had nothing but anger. I wanted to kill people so many times because of how angry I was. And people didn't even know. This little quiet boy, man, picking on me and all that stuff. Like, I grew up with all that crap, man. And people didn't even know that I had plotted to kill people, man. And would do it. I would have done it had it not been for God, protecting me, and my mother praying for me. I'd be in prison or dead, and there'd be dead people at my hands. But God saved me, man, by Jesus Christ. And that's real. I ain't playing with this. Like, I ain't got no reason. I don't even care what people think about me. I don't care what you think about me. I know what Jesus did for me. My friends know what Jesus did for me. And those people who told me that they don't want to be my friend no more because I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs with you anymore. Like, people literally said you ain't cool no more because you don't do these things. I ain't care, man. My life was different, man. I was good. I was better. Finally. I met an awesome, wonderful wife, and that's a whole nother story. But man, I love Jesus, man. I'm saved for real. I mean, I've prayed and experienced real live miracles. I got friends that I pray for that know. I got friends today that deny Jesus, that deny God, and know for a fact that I prayed for you in the name of Jesus after this happened to me, and you got exactly what you needed. You had miracles happen in your real life. And I ain't mad at you, for trying to figure out this thing on your own, but let's be for real, man. We know what's real. I got nothing to gain from this, whether you accept Jesus or not. If we be realistic, it does not make a difference in my life. Besides the fact that I love you and I want you to accept Jesus. I want you to have a good life. But there's so much more that I could share. There's so much in my life that people don't understand, people don't know, people will never imagine. That's real, man. So much that's real. So I hope, this is a long video, I'm gonna have to edit it, whatever, but I hope that you get something out of this. I just know that the Bible says that we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. By the blood of Jesus Christ, He forgave me for my sins, and He really delivered me from anger and drugs and alcohol. Like instantly. I was instantly delivered from these things. I didn't go to AA. Not that I have anything against that. I'm saying my experience, I didn't go to AA. I didn't go to any rehab classes. I didn't do any treatments. Jesus, the Christ, Yeshua, HaMashiach, however you want to say His name, literally delivered me from drugs and alcohol and depression and anger and rage and a murderous spirit. And He saved me and spared my life. And I want to share that with the entire world.